Going back to your early days, what was your entry point into business and entrepreneurship?
I had a neighbor who died when I was, I think I was 12 when he died. And I inherited, he didn't leave me, but I ended up inheriting his bookshelf. And there was something about the bookshelf that just called me. It lit up, and like there was music playing and the angels were singing, and like there was just this magnetic attraction to this bookshelf. As soon as I came into his house, I could feel it pulling me like a magnet towards it. And it was business books, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, negotiations, sales, marketing. It was all of that on this bookshelf. We're eating government cheese right next door. My mom's doing the best she can, raising 4 kids, basically in poverty. And this dude's got Rolexes and suits and ties and fancy shoes that I'd never seen. And he's got this really plush carpet, and he's got these beautiful paintings and art. And he lived right next door, like just right. I could throw a rock and hit his house right there. And so I knew that it was that close. And yet we were missing something that he had. And when I came into contact with that bookshelf, it was like, this is what I've been searching for my whole 12 years of my life. And I just poured myself into those books and studying as much as I possibly could. And then when I was 14, I got a knock at the door. It was my grandpa. Hey, you want to go meet your dad? Yeah. Went down, met my dad. He owns dive shops. Okay. Well, at 14 and a half, when summer vacation came, I was down there and he left for vacation. I'm running the dive shop. And so I'm taking all this Brian Tracy knowledge that I had from the books, and then I'm taking this real world Pirates of the Caribbean dad of mine and his business shenanigans that he's doing, trying to hybrid them together, and then leave my dad until the next time I see him and see how business goes in between. And yet I was only 14 and just met him, and he's going like, how do you know this? Like, what are you talking about? What is that? That doesn't even make any sense. Well, can we just try it? Well, sure, we can try it, but it's not going to, oh, fuck, that worked. And so that was always cool. Or no, yeah, dude, that didn't work. We're going to have to cut it. Well, okay. Now we know that I can put a line through that in Brian's book.
That is amazing that at such a young age, the neighbor had all the expensive paintings and Rolexes but you realized what a gift it was to have this bookshelf, and you knew what to do with it. Like a lot of kids, I feel, would like, well, these look boring. Maybe I'll read them when I'm an adult, but you just dove into it right away. That's incredible.
It still blows me away. Like it was like a magnet. It was literally calling me and pulling me physically towards it. I don't remember much of being 12, but I remember standing at the bottom of the staircase and having the lights and just the whole production of this bookshelf glowing, and just like, fuck, I want that. I don't even know what it is. There was a beautiful painting of a naked woman. And I was like, well, that's cool. I'd really like that. But at 12, it wasn't real practical. I was like, oh, what am I going to do with that?
It's kind of hard to hide that.
Tyson posters, like I'm not going to take down my Mike Tyson poster to put up a naked lady, like I'm more interested in Mike and Kirby Puckett. But that bookshelf, man, and then it rains a lot in Salem. So if I wasn't out riding my bike in the rain, I was inside and I was hunkered down reading my books. I spent a lot of time grounded and in my room by myself. And Choose Your Own Adventures books and business books is pretty much how I grew up.
Wow.
Fantastic. So I'm guessing you don't think an MBA is necessarily a must-have if you're starting a business. You can educate yourself, right?
Totally. Yeah. I didn't know the letters until very, very recently. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool that, that people are doing that. My favorite was I ended up at a talk at an entrepreneurial class. How the hell do you teach entrepreneurs? That doesn't I don't know. It just didn't seem like something you could teach. It just felt like something you are. Yeah. But and if you, but yeah, I think that the one thing about the schooling is you get you get a vocabulary, and I think vocabulary is always a great place to start. I think anytime you want to learn a new topic, you need to have a good vocabulary so you can at least ask questions and be somewhat logical and cohesive in your in what you receive. Like, you're going to be better able to process what you've learned if you know what the hell they're talking about. The only way you can know what the hell they're talking about is if you're speaking the same language. So you need a good vocabulary. Schooling does that. But so do books. So does a dictionary. But I typically start out with the Idiot's Guide books, because the Idiot's Guides or the Dummy's Guides or whatever, they'll teach you the vocabulary, and then you can start learning from there.
Hmm. What are some other recommendations you have?
I still am a big Brian Tracy fan. I still think Brian, a lot of what he says is repetitive and redundant, and it's maybe not as relevant as it was in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s and even the 2010s. But for a good, solid foundation, like Audible and Brian Tracy's Best of Best or whatever it's called, it's like 15 hours. And anytime it's 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, I'm in my truck. That's typically what I have on repeat at 2.5 times speed, where it's just staying in me. And I still am learning from it. I should talk to Brian again now that I think about that. I've only talked to him a couple times, and I had I called him out on a couple things, and I kind of feel bad because I really do admire the dude.
Hey, I wasn't trying to pull a student becomes the master thing on you. I was just
Yeah, it was just complete fluke. Twice I just had this complete fluke thing where I was reading his book, and he has this quote by this very, very, very famous person. And I'm sitting with the very, very famous person, and I said, "Hey, here's your quote." He goes, "That's not my quote." Yes, it is. Right here, black and white in the book. He's like, "I didn't ever say that." Brian, guess what? Dude never said it. He's like, "Well," and then the second time was kind of a similar thing where it's like, I asked him a question about a story he had told back in the early 80s. And he's like, "Oh, that wasn't really a thing."
Wow.
I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I just built my life off of that. Like, I literally built my whole world off of that thought. And now you're telling me it's all bullshit. Yep.
Whoops.
Whoops.
Well, I mean, apparently whatever it was, it works.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that's long story short. Like, whatever he said, it worked. And so whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter because it became true.